So, Firestorm then. With the announcement of Battlefield 6 just around the corner and it being highly likely they're going to reveal a Battle Royale, I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at why Firestorm flopped and why COD Warzone goes from strength to strength with no issues whatsoever. But in all seriousness, despite issues with Warzone, it has far surpassed Firestorm when it comes to pretty much all metrics. In fact, just to get footage for this video, I was searching for over 10 minutes numerous times throughout the day just to get into a single match of Firestorm. So what lessons can be drawn so we don't have the same outcome in Battlefield 6? Before we jump into it though, if you do enjoy, be sure to subscribe. We do everything Battlefield on this channel, so if you're a Battlefield fan, this could be the place for you. A major issue then with Firestorm is the gunplay itself, which is actually never a good first start when it's a first person shooter. In Warzone there are always meta weapons for sure, but in addition there are also many weapons that I'd like to call viable. The M4, Growl, Kilo, M13, MP7, Kar 98, HDR, AMAX, Broom, PKM, and it goes on. In addition, weapons in Warzone are tailored for Warzone, operating differently to their counterparts in multiplayer, which really does make sense considering how vastly different the two game modes play. Firestorm on the other hand just directly ports 16 weapons from multiplayer as ground loot, without making any changes whatsoever, which isn't a viable strategy. For example, the Suomi and the Stormgewehr, which are ground loot weapons, in multiplayer arguably are some of the best weapons in the game when killing players with 100 health points. The problem comes is when you slap on another 300 health on opponents for a grand total of 400, funnily enough this dramatically changes how the weapons perform. Having 20 or 30 bullets no longer is sufficient when opponents have 400 health a pop, meaning many weapons feel sluggish, unsatisfying and borderline frustrating to use. LMGs and snipers become some of the only weapons that actually feel like they belong in a game of Firestorm. Problematic considering there are only actually 16 weapons to start with in the game. The second major issue with Firestorm is the pace of the game. The map Halvoy is just slightly larger than Verdansk, meaning it's a gigantic map. In fairness, not all the map is used in a round of Firestorm, but the map is still pretty large. The most obvious problem then is that Firestorm can only cater for 64 players, whilst Warzone caters for 150 players. This ends up making Firestorm feel like a walking simulator a lot of the time, in all honesty. In addition, the map itself is filled with wide open spaces with little to no loot, making traversing the map an even more tedious endeavour. However, player numbers and map design are not the only thing that affect the pacing of the game. Warzone has numerous mechanics that I like to call hotspots that attract players to specific areas of the map. Some of these include shops, bounty targets, most wanted contracts, UAVs and recon flares. These hotspots not only give squads kind of mini objectives to complete, but also draw different squads to certain locations to increase the probability of engagements and thus the pacing of the game. Pacing isn't simply the length of the game, but how active you are within the given time frame, and in an average game in Warzone, you're going to be doing a lot more than you will be in Firestorm. Firestorm does have some hotspot mechanics such as weapon drops, but not nearly as many as Warzone, and often these weapon drops are not sufficient in value for squads to warrant the long detour, which is actually often outside the circle. When me and my friend were playing, we actually played the whole match without coming across a single opponent, just to get blown up at the end of a 25-minute game. This is such a dead game. This is such a dead game. Not an enjoyable experience. We touched on it when we were talking about weapon balance, but there's also a serious lack of variety when it comes to Firestorm. Variety can be tackled in different ways and really depends on what the developer is going for when developing a BR. In Warzone's case, the variety comes in large part from your loadout, what weapons you use, what attachments, what perks, how your loadout fits into the wider team. Are you running 2 snipers and an SMG player, or is everyone running SMGs for aggressive plays? And most importantly, how your loadout fares against other teams' kits. Metas come and go, but these decisions you still have to make every Warzone match. In Fortnite, all loot is scavenged.
It's feeding time.
But variety is introduced through the sheer quantity of loot in the game, with 26 base weapons with 5 tiers ranging from common to legendary, on top of that a whole host of gadgets and power-ups, and in addition a whole separate building mechanic. And then we come to Firestorm, that just doesn't find the right formula. It tries to be like Fortnite in the sense that all loot is scavenged, but doesn't provide nearly the variety of weaponry and gadgets that you see in Fortnite. With only 16 weapons with 3 tiers, many of which aren't viable, along with a minimal selection of gadgets. Now you could argue Fortnite didn't have the kind of variety it does now when it launched, yet Fortnite still had variety through its building mechanic and in addition satisfying gunplay, something we have discussed Firestorm just doesn't have. Arguably the biggest downfall for Firestorm though was its paywall. Free-to-play BRs have become industry standard. Warzone, Fortnite, Apex, Hyperscape, Realm Royale and even PUBG is pretty much free now. With Firestorm being behind a £50 paywall, it's no wonder player counts were starting from a low base. In addition, with a £50 upfront cost, people become reluctant very quickly to spend more money on a live service model for cosmetics and the like. DICE and EA scrapped premium in the hope they could cash in on cosmetics like many other popular BRs of the time. However, missed the crucial part of them being free to play in the first place. The lack of purchases of cosmetics in turn probably led to the content drought seen in Firestorm and for that matter Battlefield V in general. Lack of updates when implementing a live service model, as you can imagine, is cause for concern. Warzone updates bring a flush of new players back to the game every time we wish to explore what overpowered, unbalanced, soul-destroying weapon is unloaded upon us next. Yet jokes aside, live updates reinvigorate interest around the game and there just simply wasn't enough of them in Firestorm. Another problem with Firestorm was just the general lack of refinement around the game, which made the experience subpar. You know you have a problem with your game when a large part of a player's time is spent trying to decipher how to acquire loot they want from fallen foes. Not only is it hard to loot though, but the system is needlessly complicated. Having a max total ammo reserve where you choose what ammo you carry isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's a system used in Apex after all. However, having a system like this where added time is needed to loot combined with a system where it's impossible to pick up loot is a recipe for disaster. The system works in Apex due to the fact that ammo types and weapons are all nicely arranged in a loot box. The UI is refined and easy to use. Warzone, although not perfect, I mean we've all had problems when trying to pick up armor satchels after all, it does what it needs to do for the most part. Firestorm just never seemed to fix these issues. And the loot system isn't the only thing that feels underdeveloped. The scarcity of ammo itself means rarely do you even have more than 2 mags of ammo, again a serious problem when opponents can have 400 health each. Weapons don't spawn in with ammo either, which although may have been intentional is a pretty shitty feature when ammo is so sparse in the first place.
I don't have ammo! Our teammate
oh, you fucking dickhead, you dick. You dick. This sucks. And then there are just smaller annoyances such as not being able to cut your parachute once deployed, or the fact that pings are not a universal colour, meaning you may see your ping as orange but your teammate may see it as blue, making coordination that much more difficult. It just seems on many counts things were rushed, like basic things like having enough ammo to kill your opponents or having the right coloured pings, most games just get right first try. There really isn't too much positive to say when it comes to Firestorm. Warzone just provides satisfying gunplay, tons of variety through loadouts, a fast-paced environment, consistent updates, and generally the experience is fairly refined. Now this is not to say Warzone is perfect, as it certainly isn't. At the time of scripting this even, I actually hate Warzone due to the number of glitches and overpowered weapons in the game. But I don't think you can argue that it doesn't do the fundamentals well, that keeps suckers like myself and you coming back for that adrenaline rush every time. Firestorm, due to the reasons discussed, just doesn't provide players with the urge to play more, as just so few events actually occur in a single game. If I want to pause for praise, I would say the way they balance vehicles through the fuel mechanic and the need for a gunner and driver was a clever one that worked well, yet that's really where my praises end. Yet this is just my thoughts, and let me know what you think on Firestorm in the comments. If you did enjoy, please do subscribe, really helps out the channel and it would be very, very much appreciated. On that note, thanks for watching, have a great day and peace out.